At 7:46 in the evening, a police officer pulled up to a snowbank on a dark stretch of road in rural New Hampshire. A car sat crumpled against the bank, engine off, headlights still on. Minutes earlier, a witness had been standing right next to that car talking to the young woman behind the wheel. Now the officer was alone. The woman was gone. Her purse was still on the seat. Her phone was still in the car. Her shoes were still inside. She had vanished into the cold in under 20 minutes without leaving a single footprint anyone could follow. Her name was Maura Murray. She was 21 years old, and for more than 2 decades, nobody has been able to explain what happened to her. This is the story of the last day anyone saw her, and the small, strange details that still don't add up. Maura grew up in Hampshire, Massachusetts, the fourth of 5 kids in a tight Irish Catholic family. She was smart. She ran track and cross-country in high school, fast enough to earn a spot at West Point, the U.S. military academy. She later transferred out, landing at the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. Friends described her as driven, a little intense, the kind of person who held herself to a high standard and quietly struggled when she fell short of it. By February of 2004, cracks were starting to show. She'd recently gotten in trouble for using a stolen credit card number to order pizza, a small thing, but it was hanging over her, threatening her plans to become a licensed nurse. She was in a long-distance relationship with an Army cadet named Bill, and by most accounts, it wasn't going smoothly. There were rumors of infidelity on both sides. She was tired. Around this time, people close to her started noticing she seemed withdrawn. 4 days before she disappeared, Maura was in a minor car accident near West Point, where her father, Fred, was visiting. It was clumsy, forgettable, the kind of fender bender you'd laugh about a week later. Nobody could have known it was the first domino. On the morning of February 9th, 2004, Maura woke up like any other day. She emailed a homework assignment to her nursing cohort just after 3:30 in the morning. Ordinary, responsible, on schedule. Then, in the early afternoon, something shifted. She sent an email to her professors and her work supervisor. She said she needed to leave town for a week. She said there had been a death in the family. Nobody in her family had died. Not a grandparent, not a distant cousin, nobody. It was a lie, and to this day, no one has ever explained why she told it. Then she went to a bank machine and pulled out $280, nearly every dollar she had. She stopped at a liquor store and picked up vodka, Kahlua, and a case of beer. She printed directions online, not to anywhere nearby. To Vermont. Somewhere in the middle of all this, she also found time to send her boyfriend a short, affectionate message. Nothing about it hinted that anything was wrong. It read like any other Tuesday between 2 people who loved each other. Then she packed her car, a black 1996 Saturn, and she drove north. By early evening, a snowstorm had rolled into New Hampshire. Visibility was dropping, and somewhere along Route 112, just outside a small village called Woodsville, Maura Murray lost control of her car and slid into a snowbank. At 7:27 p.m., a woman who lived nearby looked out her window and saw the car sitting off the road. She called it in. Within minutes, a passing driver noticed the wreck too and pulled over to check on her. He found Maura standing near the car. He asked if she needed help. She told him she'd already called for a tow truck and that everything was handled. He believed her. He drove away. She hadn't called anyone. Around the same time, a school bus driver named Butch Atwood, who lived close by, walked down to the crash site to see if he could help. He said she seemed shaken but not badly hurt. He offered to call for assistance. She didn't ask him to stay. He went back inside and dialed 911 himself, just to be safe. That call came in at 7:42 p.m. 4 minutes later, at 7:46, an officer reached the scene. Maura was not there. Her car was empty. Her phone, her wallet with cash inside, her class textbooks, a stuffed animal from childhood, and a box of wine were still sitting inside, undisturbed. There was no blood, no sign of a struggle. It looked, investigators said, as if she had simply stepped away and never come back. Search teams were called in almost immediately. Dogs picked up her scent roughly 100 yards east of the crash site, moving through the trees, and then, without warning, the trail went cold. Not faded, cold. As if the trail simply stopped existing. Here's where the timeline gets strange. A different witness, someone parked further down the road, later said she saw a police SUV parked nose to nose with a dark sedan near the crash, and she placed that sighting several minutes before dispatch records show Officer Cecil Smith actually arrived. If her account is accurate, that means another vehicle, one that was never identified, may have already been sitting at that crash site before police ever got there. Nobody has ever explained who that vehicle belonged to, or whether it existed at all. In the days that followed, investigators combed the woods with helicopters, thermal cameras, and snowshoe teams. They found nothing. No trace, no remains, no sign that Maura had ever walked away from that snowbank under her own power. Theories multiplied fast. Some believed she'd wandered into the woods, disoriented from the crash, and succumbed to the cold before anyone found her, even though extensive searches turned up nothing. Others believed she'd gotten into a vehicle with someone, willingly or not, in those unaccounted for minutes before police arrived. And a third theory, one her father has always rejected, suggested she staged her own disappearance entirely, to escape the credit card case, the relationship, the pressure of nursing school, and start over somewhere no one would find her. None of those theories fully explain everything. The email lie explains motive for running. The abandoned belongings, her phone, her cash, her clothes, argue against a planned escape. The dog trail that vanished into nothing argues against someone simply walking away on foot. Every piece of evidence seems to cancel out the piece before it. Over the following years, Maura's father, Fred, refused to let the case go quiet. He returned to those woods almost every weekend for months. He pushed New Hampshire to open a dedicated cold case unit, and in 2009, her file became one of its first cases. He publicly criticized investigators for treating his daughter's disappearance as a simple missing person report instead of a potential crime. He filed lawsuits just to access the state's own files on his daughter. In 2006, a search team's cadaver dogs reacted strongly inside a closet in a house near the crash site. A carpet sample was sent to state police. The results were never made public. 15 years later, in 2021, bone fragments were discovered nearby and tested. They weren't hers. In 2022, the FBI issued a fresh national alert on the case, decades after Maura vanished, hoping new eyes might surface a lead the original investigation missed. None of it has ever led anywhere. As of today, no one has ever been named a suspect. No one has ever been charged. Maura Murray has never been found. Not her body, not her belongings, not a single confirmed sighting that investigators consider credible. What we're left with is a stretch of road in rural New Hampshire, a young woman who told one lie on an ordinary afternoon, and a window of about 19 minutes that no one has ever been able to account for. Somewhere in those 19 minutes, something happened to Maura Murray. Whether she walked, whether she was taken, or whether she simply chose to disappear. The answer is still out there, buried under 20 years of snow, silence, and a case file her own father still hasn't stopped fighting to open. If you were investigating this case, where would you start looking? In the 19 minutes, or in the lie that came hours before it?